Welcome to So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent. This is season 4, Learning from Legends. And today we have the legendary Katie Day with us. Katie, I'm so excited to have you here. Katie is a new mom, as it turns out, and she is also the team leader of the Move Me to Texas team based in Houston, Texas. And Katie is here to share with us lessons on running her business, leadership that she has learned, the value of continually learning in this business, and kind of what she's famous for, infamous for maybe, which is content creation and use of YouTube specifically. So I'm super excited to dive in and learn from you, Katie. Thanks for being here today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm just excited. We could end this now. You called me legendary, so I'm like, we're good. We can just stop and move on. So.
Well, you know how we know you're legendary? I'm not even joking. If someone says Katie Day, like in the Tom Ferry ecosystem, in just the real estate world in general, people know who you are. And you have a known name. So I think that,
I don't know.
that entitles you to the legend, Katie.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but we're here.
So first I want to ask you, because I know people who are listening are probably in the same boat where they're either expecting a child or they have a new baby and maybe they're having a little bit of trouble juggling, although Katie was just sharing that she's been like a champion sleeper at least the past couple of days. But what do you say to people who are like, I don't know how I'm going to do this with a baby?
So one thing that's crazy about me, for those that know me, I'm like, super calendar invite person. I'm very kind of regimented when it comes to my schedule. And so I was very nervous about having a child because all parents are just like, oh yeah, your life's going to be just completely screwed. Your schedule's going to be gone. Your life is no longer yours. So I was very nervous kind of going into it, but we didn't do a ton of preparation. We're kind of just like, whatever happens is going to happen. So we basically over communicated about our schedule, my husband and I, to make sure that we knew who was getting up in the middle of the night, right? Who was, on duty from what times. And so when she wasn't sleeping through the night, it was the every 2-hour feedings, he would stay up until about midnight. I would take 12 to 4, and then he would pick back up at 4. So we could each get some uninterrupted sleep. Right. When we heard her start crying, or in the beginning, we had alarms set, to wake up to feed her. And so that was very helpful. And now that she's sleeping through the night, it's really just communicating on like who's going to be home, at the end of the day, when the nanny leaves, because she leaves at 4. And, as your day normally doesn't end at 4 p.m. So right. Yeah, just communication on schedule, I think is the most important, because otherwise I feel like it's a little chaotic, and it does feel, kind of like a lot.
Doesn't surprise me that you approached it in that strategic way, but that's so brilliant. What I love is, I'm sure that like is kind of a saver in the angst that can come with being a new parent in like the marriage too, because there's no like what is it called? Unstated expectation. Like, I thought you were going to get up, and the resentment of, me getting up again. Like, you knew, like you planned it out, you knew whose duty it was, and you did it.
We had a lot of that first week, they're kind of laying there. You're like,
yeah,
is he still asleep? Yeah. I mean, I know I'm not asleep, but is he getting up? No. Okay. So we learned pretty quickly to figure out like what that schedule would look like for us. And it's obviously changed. I mean, she's only 3 months old, but that's changed, over the past few months.
That's great. Well, and you said you have a nanny, which is, I think, a life changer. When I had my third one, and I didn't have a nanny with my first 2, I was fully in real estate, but yeah. I remember looking at Chris and going, we're hiring a nanny now. Before I was like, I don't know, I was like 4 months pregnant, I think. And I was like, we're finding the right person. We're going to put her on retainer. And we did. Like, we paid her for time before the baby was born, because I knew she was the right person.
Lock her
in. I feel really good about it. Yep. And it was great because it gave me the freedom to do what I needed to do to keep on being a fulfilled human being and a good mother when I came home.
Well, and especially getting to 3, right? Like at 2, like you're not outnumbered. At 3, you're outnumbered,
yes.
So.
Yes, it's true. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that advice. So now I want to take you back to before the baby, before like the beginning of your real estate career. But I think one thing about you that's really fascinating is that you have this incredibly successful business in Texas, and your team is Move Me to Texas, which you might think, well, Katie's from Texas, right? Like, obviously she's like a born bred Texan. You can feel that in like everything that she does. And it does feel like you're that Texas, like, pride. You can feel it coming through, but you're actually from my neck of the woods. You're from Maryland to begin with. So I wanted to ask you, what was it like establishing business in a place that you are not from originally? And the reason is I have agents, and I'm sure some of our audience members out there have relocated for one reason or another, or just chosen to live in a different state than they're from, and feel a little bit of like a little bit of a loss or a handicap that they might not have that native knowledge that they've had, and therefore not as much of a natural edge in building a business there.
Yeah, I think it comes down to two things. And one is like the knowledge of the area and just the places and things. And then the other is the sphere. I think that people always get really nervous, especially when you're kind of first joining a team or first starting in real estate. They tell you to call your sphere. And if you just move somewhere new, you normally don't have that. I was very fortunate in that I moved here in 2011 and I didn't get into real estate full time until 2017. So I had some time to cultivate contacts and friends and, business acquaintances and learn the areas. But like, I've been in real estate now since 2017. And like, I've gotten to know the neighborhoods and things a lot more. And so I think that if you're brand new, I think that it's important to know that you can learn about the different neighborhoods. I mean, even today, I couldn't tell you, the average sales price of every single neighborhood in Houston, but I know that where to look and I know what information to pull and I know what things to look at if a client wants to make an offer. And I know if I'm going out with a client to research the neighborhood and how I can research how many homes there are and the average sales price and, different trends and things like that. Right. So I think that just knowing where to look is important. I think understanding that it's a journey and you're not going to know everything day one. Even if someone's, from here, right, and just got into real estate today, they probably don't know where to look for a lot of the information. So just knowing that you can tell someone, hey, Meredith, I'm not sure, but I can get you that when I get home today. I can get you that information when I get home today, or let me check into that and I'll get back to you, isn't a completely acceptable response. Like, you don't have to have all of the answers all the time. I know you've been doing it for a long time as well. And like, I'm sure there's sometimes you get a question, you're like, no one's ever asked me that before. Let me get back to you,
All the time. And it's a great reason to get back to someone. Also, I always
Yeah,
say
that
it's
too.
like it's perfect when you don't have all of the information, because then you get a chance to follow up organically without being like, hey, just check it in. Like, hey, I actually
Yeah.
was able to find that piece of information for you.
Yeah.
And where would you say, for like the total novice at this, who's like, well, I don't know how to find out about the history of my neighborhood or who the builders are. Where should they look?
So I think the MLS can be a wealth of knowledge. At least with ours, I know that I can look back at historical information, both like market stats and actual sales. So depending on how big of an area, I mean, Houston is a very, very large market, right? But we do a lot in some particular pockets, right? So if you're moving to an area, like, research that area, understand what's happened with the homes around you. If you're doing open houses, door knock and meet neighbors and just try to get as much, market knowledge and information as possible. Talking to neighbors, I think is a big one. They're always going to tell you what happened down the street 20 years ago, and what the store down the street used to be, or what that, empty lot was an old, whatever building. So they'll give you the history and kind of the gossip about the neighborhood that will make you sound, slightly more knowledgeable about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think that someone needs to, as a new agent, do a whole bunch of like data sourcing before they jump in, or can they start prospecting in an area before they kind of have a good grasp of what that information is?
I think that it's always a journey. So if you're trying to get all the information or trying to do all of the research, you're never going to feel like you're ready. Right. And so as daunting as it may be, you do need to kind of get out there and start actually talking to potential clients and actually talking to people before, you may be 100% ready. And again, it's completely okay to tell someone you don't know, and you'll get back to them.
Yeah.
Right. As opposed to just kind of, trying to learn everything or flying by the seat of your pants and never learning it. Right. So I think that it's as long as you know that you don't know everything, and you're willing to do the research and put yourself out there, that's when you'll find success.
Yeah. Great advice. Love that. Now, I also read that you were named VIP of the Year in 2020. Congratulations. And I don't remember what this was, in an article that I read about you, doing my research for you before you came on the show. And in that article, there were a number of other aspects that stood out to me. One being that you studied international business in college and traveled even to other countries to study international business. And you always hear the most successful agents approach real estate as a business. It's not just a
Mhm.
career, it's not just a job, it's a business. So, as someone who did not study business, sometimes that's felt a little bit daunting to me because I don't know what I don't know, but I know there's stuff I don't know. So, coming from someone like you who has studied international business, what would you say are like the top things that you have connected from your studies to running your business successfully? And what are some things that agents who haven't studied business at all might think about learning or, just think about considering when they're progressing in their business?
So I always laugh because people will reach out to me that either haven't gone to college and are considering it, or have gone to college and are considering getting, an MBA or something like that. And they reach out
Mhm.
to me because they see I have, a degree and an MBA, and they're like, has this really helped you in your real estate career? And I always chuckle and I'm like, no, it hasn't. Right. Like, I think that you can learn all of the things in the world. Just like I said, you can sit and prepare and look at all the market stats and study everything. But if you never talk to a client, then it doesn't really matter. Right. And,
Yeah.
I've learned far more by, owning a business than I ever did sitting in a classroom. So I think that that's the one thing that, like, with a lot of people, when they're concerned about not having the education or the background, I can 1,000% guarantee you I've learned more actually running a business and selling real estate than I ever did, sitting in an econ class or, an accounting class that I barely scraped by, in college or in grad school. So I think that's kind of the first part. The thing that I really think that's important that I did learn in school, um, or gain in school, is more so the connections, and so there's a lot of people that I've met throughout the years that I've been able to help them in their business, or they've been able to help me in mine, or we've, exchanged referrals or different things like that. And I think that you can accomplish that just by networking. You can accomplish that by meeting people in your local market and things like that.
Mhm.
So I don't think that it's necessarily imperative that you find that, at a university or college.
Mhm.
The international business portion, I got a master's degree from a university here in Houston when I was still back at like a W-2 job. And we got to go to India and Dubai. And one thing that was very beneficial with that is just kind of the world view. But then we visited businesses and expats, people from the States that were living overseas. And so that's huge with oil and gas. For a lot of the larger oil and gas companies, like, you've got to go do some sort of stint overseas in order to move up at the company, like, at least, or move up quicker than others. And so that has really helped me, being in Houston, being able to kind of understand, okay, they have an assignment and they're coming to Houston. Okay, is this short term or long term? What does that look like? Do you think you'll ever go overseas? And, like, just those questions that you would ask, in order to fully understand someone's, buying or selling situation. And
Yeah.
so I probably could have learned that just in my course of, selling homes, but it definitely helped me as far as being able to kind of, walk the walk and talk the talk with some of our
Yeah.
clients.
Exactly. I mean, I would think that that's pretty impressive insight for you to be able to kind of like speak that same language that they're speaking that, applies directly to their situation. That's pretty brilliant. And then as far as when you started to build your team,
Yeah.
was there anything that, because I think, I'm constantly reading, not of course going to business school at all, books like, Good to Great and, How to Be a Great Boss, all these things
Yeah.
and, economic studies and things that I kind of wish I had known about beforehand and had gone from more of like a top down approach as I built rather than building and going, oh my gosh, now what are all the foundational pieces I should have had in place?
Yeah.
What would you say if people are trying to build a team? Is the same kind of philosophy, or is there anything they should be learning that would really help them?
So, I mean, we're both in coaching, and that's how we know each other. And so I think, looking back on it now, you know, you're given all of this advice on how to start a team, and you're like, oh, well, I know how to do it myself, and you do it. And then you realize all that advice was correct. Right. Or at least that's how
Yep.
my journey was.
Yep.
Not sure about you and Chris, but,
Yep.
so I actually just got asked this in a group the other day, and my top tips are: get as much information out of your head and onto paper as possible. right? And have SOPs in how you do things.
Mhm.
Because if Meredith and I were both doing an open house, we both would do it differently. And not to say that either of us are wrong, it's just slightly different. And so if you have specific standards of how you want things done in your business and with your team, you need to have them out of your head and onto paper. And they should be on paper. They should be in the cloud somewhere, but they should be, and done in tedious detail, right? Like turn on all the lights in the home and open all blinds, right? Not just, hey, make sure it looks okay, right? You want it to be in very tedious detail. So get everything out of your head and onto paper. I think the other thing is understanding your value proposition as you're beginning to add agents. I also don't think your first hire should be an agent, but that's a whole nother story we can go down. But as you're adding agents, understand what your value prop is. Why should they join you? It's not always leads. Everyone thinks it's leads. It's not always leads. It is your expertise. And then third would be that you need to understand what your cost per listing and what your acquisition cost for a buyer is, right? And if you understand those things, then you can have a profitable business, right? So if you know what your costs are, you can actually have profit. If you have everything out of your head and onto paper, you're actually able to train people. And then if you have a value prop, you're able to articulate why people should join your team. And if you can do those things, at least in the beginning, you'll still make all of the mistakes and do all the things that Meredith and I did, but hopefully that'll shorten that learning curve for you.
Lessen the growing pains a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. That's great advice. I love the tedious detail piece of it too, because not just using like those broad strokes, but really getting down to the granular pieces of how it's going to look for you. And I want to ask you too about, this was another thing I read in that article. You were selected in 2018 to be part of the Texas Realtors Leadership Program. Tell us about that. What was that? What was important about that? And would you suggest that agents who are starting out in the business get involved in like a local association or some kind of leadership to learn?
So in Houston, the Houston Association of Realtors is, I think, one of the best, if not the best association across the country. Just for, we have a consumer facing app. They like advertise it at billboards and in the airport and all kinds of things. And it's a robust website. They have lots of stuff. So getting involved at HAR, our association, looks a lot different than getting involved at ABC Association. So not every association is a great place to go for you to get involved and network and learn. So that's like kind of my caveat. But basically, Texas Realtors Leadership Program was a leadership program put on by the Texas Association of Realtors, and they do it throughout different cities across the state. And it's basically like it's a year-long program, but it's like 6 or 9 month intensive program where we're meeting like once a month on different leadership topics. So that was very beneficial to my business because it was like real estate based and leadership based. And then on top of that, just the relationships that I gained from that and getting involved in the association to kind of have a little bit of sway on the direction in which, we're representing our members is important. The networking aspect has served me well over the past few years, where we've had really just up markets and down markets and all kinds of things to be able to reach out and say, hey, Meredith, do you have any listings coming soon in Kentlands? And you're like, oh yeah, actually I do. And since we're friends, you may give me a little bit more information than just some random person calling you. And so that was something that had really helped me. So the knowledge was great. And then the interpersonal relationships and friendships that I gained from the program and being involved with the association were amazing.
Yeah. I keep hearing this kind of recurring theme, which I hope the audience is picking up from you too, which is the building of relationships is such a foundational piece of success in real estate. You can do all of the things, but if you are building those relationships, building trust, getting to know people at their level and in a way that you're exchanging information and being a resource, your career will skyrocket in a way that all the prep and all the learning can never get you. However, I do want to ask you about the learning piece of it, because that's the other thing that I noticed about you is you've done a lot of learning, a lot of continuing your education throughout your career. Why is that important to you? And what would you recommend that other agents do? Again, we don't want to like get inert in your quest for knowledge, but what's important for people to keep developing as far as education?
So for me, in every state we have continuing ed requirements. And so for me, one of my ways to be able to differentiate myself from you coming in, if you just did the minimum amount of CE every year and got your 20 hours or how many ever hours it is in your state, and I'm getting 40, right? I can go into a listing appointment or a buyer appointment and explain that, I'm choosing to do more because I want to be better educated for my clients, right? And so that was initially kind of what it was. And then, there's all these designations and ABR and SRS and like all these different things. And I was like, oh, it would be cool to get one. And then once I kind of started, it was one of those things that I'm just a nerd, I guess. And was like, well, why don't I just keep getting them all till I have them all? And so I kept getting all of the different designations and certifications. Because again, like when I was new, it was something to lean on, right? Like if I was going into a listing appointment and, I took the seller representative specialist or whatever SRS designation, it was something that I'm like, oh, well, Meredith, I can better represent you because I've taken this. I'm a great negotiator because not only, do I, achieve 5% for my buyers off of list price, I also have taken the, accredited buyer representation and negotiation course, and it was like one of those that like, I wasn't sure of my skills. So I'm just going to keep taking courses to be able to like hang my hat on those things.
Yeah.
And again, like I think in all of those classes, I would at least take away a nugget or two to implement into my business. Right. And then I would also meet people that then when I'm, doing a deal and you see my name come across the table, you're like, oh, like, I was just in that class with her, she seems sharp. We should accept her offer. Cause like it or not, stuff like that happens because that they can close the deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love that you had this idea of collecting all of them. How close are you to collecting them all?
I think I have them all. I needed to recheck to see if there's anything.
That's impressive.
But yeah, I mean, like for like nerds, like the nerds out there, like the nerds like me, I'm not calling y'all nerds. I am also a nerd. They're like, yeah, that's so cool. And I know that it's
super cool.
Winning the spelling bee. I don't know.
I think it's so cool. And some of those certifications and designations also have, and it depends on the class, but cool content that you can draw from and repost and utilize in your social media and your on your website as well, which is exactly where we're going next, which is content creation. So this is kind of like really your wheelhouse. And you still coach with Jason, right?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so Jason Pantana, I know everybody who has been following us for a while has heard us mention Jason on the podcast, but he is like real estate, all things digital in real estate. And he is a wealth of information. And I can only imagine what it must be like to coach with him, because he must be like constantly giving you ways to up your game and maybe even like putting a little pressure on you, I'm guessing, to like up your game in terms of content creation and especially YouTube, because that's really like his specialization. And you've been doing a ton with that. So tell us about how that has evolved for you. Is that something that kind of came naturally to you? Did you have to learn it? And what have you learned through the journey? And what's it done for your business?
Sidebar on that. It's funny, like Jason and I probably talk about social the least. I have to like ask him to dig into it.
Really?
Which is, everyone's always very surprised by that. But we had a call, last week, and I was like, hey, let's dig into this because I want to talk about like how we can up, what we're doing. But like, it's normally not what we touch on, which is funny because that's like all of his webinars and what I talk about quite frequently. So anyways, what was the question?
So first of all, like if it doesn't, did it come naturally to you?
Okay.
To
Yeah.
Video and create this content.
Yeah, no, it didn't. Okay. I posted a video maybe last year of like my first video, and it was a Facebook Live with me at a property, and I'm holding my phone. I'm like, hey guys, what's up? It's Katie Day. I'm at this property. Then I was like, 1127 Banana Street, like, because I completely forgot what I was doing. It was shaky. I turned the camera around. You can like not hear me because it's, I'm far away from the mic. It was terrible, and so it was something that I knew by following Tom Ferry and really any real estate coach, that like social media was important to be able to show people who you are, to be able to showcase your neighborhood, to be able to market your listings and basically do all the things, right? So I knew I needed to do it. So it's definitely been, quite the journey or quite the path for that. But it hasn't always come natural. And I mean, even now still, like I'll go do a video shoot sometimes and it's just like, it's terrible, and it's like, oh man, I hope post-production editing is gonna, make me look good, because that didn't feel good.
All right. So take me back to from that like first shaky video where you were away from the microphone and didn't remember the address. What was kind of like the next step? Now, did you start like who looked at that, or was it you and said, this could be better, or here's where I want to go with it? Or was it through Tom Ferry that you were exposed to content that was a little slicker and then figure out how to do it? How do you get there?
Yeah. So from 2017 till about 2019, I did mainly Facebook, Facebook Live videos, right?
Okay.
And that was back when like Facebook, everyone was on it. You
Yep.
could go on a business page and go live and people would actually watch it. I would call all my friends and tell them, hey, at noon, if you're not in a meeting or if you're not busy at work, just open up Facebook and you don't even have to do anything. Just open it up. So I have a viewer on there, so I'd get my 2 or 3 or 4 viewers.
Mhm.
And then I would pay to put money behind it and boost it so more people would see it. Those were my stats when I would go into listing appointments. I had 5,000 views or I had 5,000 this or, interactions or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And so I did that for a while. And like back then that was fine. Right. Like that was okay as far as a level or bar, because the bar wasn't very high. Right. Like
Right.
people were just starting to do video tours. I think of, some of the people now that are doing like legit like cinema, and it's like they were like just starting out with like a guy with a camera, right? And so the bar wasn't very high. You could do that and sellers would be impressed, right? But in 2019 is when we hired a videographer and made the jump into like actually doing legit property tours, that had color grading and we used mics to speak into and different stuff like that. And then in 2020 was when we started doing more of the community-based stuff, and neighborhood spotlights of local businesses and different things like that, and really just went kind of all in on it. And then I guess 2022 was really when I went pretty like hard in on short form video.
Okay.
2021, 2022.
So let me go back to you hiring the videographer.
Yeah.
Again, for like people who don't even know what that entails. How did you find the videographer? Were they in-house? Was it on a contract hourly basis? What did that look like for you?
So I was super fortunate that like a girl on my team had a friend that like dabbled in media. And so he was shooting our videos for us because it was just like her high school friend that had gotten back from college and like, so this was just like extra money for him, and so we were paying, at that time, like maybe $100 or $200 a video, it was definitely not a ton of money. But like when I look at the quality now, I'm like, I couldn't post that today. Right. Like, so it was definitely, again, like the bar was fine there, like there then, but that's not fine now. And so I think tactically though, for someone that's looking to hire a videographer now, a lot of people use WiseHire or Indeed to actually put a job posting out.
Yep.
I think that another great option is to look at hashtags. So like your city videographers, so DMV videographer, if you were looking somewhere near you, or, different kind of content creators or things like that. You can look Houston videographer and see different videographers and then see people that are doing things. You can go normally to like a photo company or something like that. They normally will also do video. They're not going to take as much direction. It's basically going to be you outside of the house. Then they do all of their things and they give you a video. So, they're not going to do like crazy creative skits or anything like that. But there's definitely things, if you're looking for a one-off, you can go to your photo company. If you're looking to hire someone, use like WiseHire, Facebook, Ask Your Sphere, Ask Your People, Indeed, and different stuff, different job boards. Colleges, I think, are another good place to find someone. I know a lot of people that are using college students that are in, film or graphic design or some sort of photo type major or path. And yeah, I think just depending on what you're looking for and how much money you're willing to invest, any of those could be good options.
Now I can hear some of our audience members going, oh my gosh, I can't afford that. I can't even hire somebody. Should I not do video at all? Because all I have is my iPhone and myself right now. What do you say to that?
So depending on what you're looking to do, I think that 99 times out of 100, your cell phone is fine. Right. I've actually found, I pay good money for my videographer to shoot with me, and we do short form and we do long form and we do different things. And then something will happen in the news and I pop open my phone and I shoot a green screen video, or I just shoot a video of me talking, and like that video of me talking performs better and gets more engagement and gets more DMs than like, some scripted out, like, thing that I've been thinking about for weeks, you know? So I think that too often people overthink it. They think that they have to have the camera and they have to have the this and they have to have the that before they start. Like,
Yeah.
get comfortable with your phone and having a conversation, talking direct to camera before you go spend thousands of dollars on a camera or thousands of dollars on a session with a videographer. Because if you're not comfortable talking on camera, hiring someone isn't going to go very well.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And then let's go to what you mean by short form, long form, for those
Yeah.
who don't understand what those
Yeah.
terms are and how that's used in your strategies around video.
Yeah. So long form video is mainly going to be what's going on YouTube. So the horizontal video that you could see, you know, those are normally going to be 3 to 5 to how many ever minutes long, more than 5 minutes long. The true YouTubers that are doing talking head style video where they're just talking direct to camera with some B-roll and pictures and videos over top the video. You know, a lot of them are like 5 to 8 minutes plus. You know, the general rule of thumb for YouTube is like, if your people are still watching, then keep pushing, you know, how long the video is to see like, okay, if a 5-minute video, they watch 80%, will they watch 80% of a 6-minute video? Will they watch 80% video, you know, of a 7-minute, 8-minute, 9-minute? Because if you can keep someone on and keep them engaged for 10 minutes or longer, like keep them on, keep making them longer. Short form video is generally going to be vertical. It really picked up in popularity because of TikTok, you know, in 2020 and 2021. And so now all of the platforms are doing it. So you can do, you know, TikTok, you could do Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, YouTube Shorts, you know, and all of those are going to be vertical format video. And, you know, it's normally going to be 90 seconds or less, but the things that perform the best are normally, you know, that 30 to 60 seconds long.
And what kind of content are you putting out for a long form video versus a short form video?
Generally speaking, long form is going to be more kind of talking head style stuff, right? Of you sitting there and talking about whatever content buckets you have. So like living in Houston, moving to Texas, moving to Houston, you know, newsworthy stuff, right? So things that are happening or coming to the area and how that would impact you if you lived here, you know, development, you know, changes in policy, things like that. And then, you know, I also do the kind of neighborhood spotlight. So what's it like living in Houston, right? What are the things that you would see, you know, if you're in this neighborhood or that, you know, what are the local businesses, and things like that.
Okay. And are you repurposing any of that into short form, or is it two totally different things?
So some of it I do. I think someone to follow is Dan Parker out of San Diego. He does a lot of that where he takes, you know, his videos and he breaks them up and thinks about, you know, of these 5 points, what are things that would be like more soundbite type stuff. And since he's been doing this for so long, he can figure that out and kind of work that into his script as he's talking so that then he can cut that up into, you know, short form video. And it's really just repurposing, right? So if you can shoot a video once and then have 10 pieces of content from it, you know, that's a lot more efficient than shooting, you know, 11 videos or, you know, 10 videos or something like that.
Yep. Now you used a term when we started talking about this, which was post-production. And for those who don't know, there's like the process. You've got the video content creation, you've got the actual creation on site of the video, some B-roll sometimes, which for those who don't know, that's like the establishing shots, the background shots of like, if it's a neighborhood, it might be houses or businesses in the neighborhood, but without you or the talking head necessarily on camera, sometimes voice over. What happens in post-production and who does that for you?
So I am very fortunate that my videographer that I have today both shoots and edits.
Ooh, that's nice.
So it's helpful because when we're shooting, I can tell he's already like, if we're shooting something, say a neighborhood spot, like he's already kind of looking around of like, okay, this is the stuff that I want to get. These are the shots that I want. And he knows, right? Often what most people have is they have someone that shoots it for them or they shoot it themselves, right? And then they send it off to an editor. And when you have more than one person with their hand in the pot or their hand in the process, it does make it a little bit more difficult because you either need to be very, very specific on the edits and the things that you want, and you may not have that vision, right? So that's difficult. Or you just kind of get something back and you're like, oh, I don't love it, but I'm just still going to post it. Or what most people do is, oh, I don't love it, so I'm never going to post it. Right. And so you do need to be specific if you have an editor that's separate from the person shooting for you
Mm.
of, this is what I'm looking for. This is the B-roll that I have. These are the shots that I want. When I'm talking about this, I want you to pan this across the screen.
Mhm.
And, for many of us that are, busy selling real estate, running businesses, have families, different things, like that's just not something that happens. And then you don't love the content you get back.
Yeah, little tip for that is because my post-production is done remotely and it's like a
Yeah.
team of people that have no idea what we did on site typically. So often, one thing with video is there's often a little bit of downtime in between, especially if you have other people. I'm like usually writing notes in my phone so I remember like what I want the order of the shots to be. Like if I think, oh, this would be good B-roll for under that particular thing, or use a voiceover here. And I used to think, oh, I'm being too much of a perfectionist, I'm being too directive. They love that. They want to know exactly where you want it because they want to do a good job for you. They want to produce what you want. But also, if you don't get a chance to do it on site, go right back. And I mean, I've got a Google form that I use that has like links to B-roll if I have that, or exactly the shots and where my intro is filmed, where my outro is filmed. So I can be super specific. And I've come up with a form that seems to work pretty well for them. And I come right down and do the brain dump like right after.
Yeah.
So I remember it's all fresh in my mind.
Yeah, that's so helpful. And I think that, if you don't do that and you do have that kind of perfectionist mindset, then it's like, you're just going to be sending edit after edit after edit to the editor. And it's like, if you can just send them like, hey, this is my thought process. This is what I want. Here are the shots. Here's where it is. Here's the text that I want on the screen. Here's my brand colors. Like all of those things from the beginning, it's going to be a lot smoother of a process. And there'll be far less back and forth.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have one company who won't even go back and forth with me. My ADTV company, that's done. I have one shot to get my edits and they send it back. And what I sent is what I get.
Yeah.
And which is great because it's a time saver and I've learned what I need to do,
Well, that's the one that actually like goes on TV and things like that. So it's like, you've got to be specific.
Yeah. You have to be specific. Yeah, exactly. You do. Yeah. What's next for you with content creation? Do you have plans to move further into what you're working on? Do you have other projects in the works?
So as far as anything new, I don't know that I don't think that I'm planning anything like groundbreaking or anything that's like, that different. I think that one of the things is like, you can either go wide or deep, right? And in anything in real estate. And so like, we're looking to just continue to like go deeper on what we're doing. And so one of those is like, I recently hired a VA probably about 3 months ago now, that anytime I post anything on Instagram, she's then taking that post and posting it on my Google My Business page. If it's, the right amount of time, she's posting it on LinkedIn, on my Facebook business page, and like purposing it and pushing it out to other sites. Right. The next iteration of that's like taking posts and embedding them in blogs, right. And blogging them, and really just taking the content that we're already doing and just going deeper with it, sending it out to past clients in Sphere into our database, and just, putting what we're already doing out in front of more people. And so that's part of it with like my short form stuff. With long form, it'll eventually be her cutting some of that up and then putting it on all of the sites and different stuff like that.
Yeah.
But really just taking what we're already doing and ensuring that the most amount of people are seeing it and then hopefully engaging and interacting with it as well.
Yeah, repurposing, that's a huge piece when you're already spending that much time into it. We have already gone over time, but this is such great information, Katie. Thank you for this. I want to just circle back to one more thing, going back all the way to the beginning. What is your feeling about being this mom of this adorable new baby, mixing your personal with your professional? I have agents who are like, I want to keep it totally separate. I'm never going to put a picture of like my kids or whatever on social media. And then people who go completely the other way. What's your thought or advice on that?
I think that oftentimes people take sharing things about their personal life and they think that they then have to share everything about their lives, right? And like, there's private and there's things that you can be private about, right? And like, sharing personal things doesn't mean you're sharing everything that's happening in your life. And so I always use Stephen Kim as an example. He's one of my very good friends out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And his thing on Instagram is like, he doesn't show his kids' faces on Instagram. So like he puts sunglasses over them, or, a mask, like a ghost face, or like, different emojis or things like that. And so that's just something on Instagram, since it's not like on Facebook, you have to accept the friend request and who's your friend and whatever. Like Instagram, anyone can follow you, because you shouldn't be private as a real estate agent if you're trying to solicit business from your Instagram, but that's a whole nother podcast for a whole nother day. So he's private in that way, right? Like if anyone can follow him, he doesn't want to put his kids' faces and private things about his children from a safety perspective out there on the internet, right? But people want to know who you are. They want to know what you're into. And so, that could be that you went to the pumpkin patch or to go pick strawberries, or, I guess berries would be this time of year, or whatever with your kids, but they don't need to know that, like, you then went home to 123 Banana Street, right? Like,
Right.
So I think you do need to share some things about you and about your life so that you are relatable, and so that people do know kind of what you're into and things like that. But you don't have to share every single trial and tribulation. You don't have to share, your social security number, your mom's maiden name, or something like that. But, you should share some things about you and your interests, because it's like, that's what makes you relatable. And, honestly, I have more fun shooting shoe content and workout videos than I do talking about real estate stuff. But, I hope that that's what hooks people in, and then they stay for the real estate information.
Yeah. Yeah. Great advice. Thank you. Wow, Katie, this has been awesome. I cannot thank you enough for being here. If anyone wants to find you, either for them to have you help them move them to Texas, or find out more about your business, how you can help them be on your team, how do they find you?
Yeah, Instagram would be the best. That's Move Me to Texas, MOVEMETOTX.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, I hope that you will consider reaching out to Katie. As you can see, she's a wealth of information with a lot to share. And we want to thank all of you for listening today. I also want to thank our podcast sponsors who make the show possible: the Rozek team with Embrace Home Mortgage, Paul Harsani with First National Bank, the Yee team with Embrace, Village Settlements, Peak Settlements. Sorry, Yee team is with Apex now. Village Settlements, Peak Settlements, and please consider connecting with us on social media as well. Leave us a review or rating. We love to hear from you on whatever platform you are listening. This has been So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent. We will see you next time. At The List, our sellers are our clients, and our listing agents are our VIPs. Think how much more you could get done if you had your open house ready to go, with a bag pre-packed with everything you need to be compliant and have a successful and inviting open house. Looking for a better way to run your listing business? Maybe you need to be on The List.